Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of Security Confidential. This time, my name is Kevin Casey. I'm the CEO and one of the equity partners here at Rhino, and I'm turning the tables on your normal host, Manoj Tandon. And we are going to ask Mr. Tandon 9 questions. He has 3 minutes and only 3 minutes to answer each one of those questions. He does not know what questions I'm going to ask, and we will see how this proceeds. So it's a little bit different than our normal Security Confidential podcast, but I thought it might be something that would be fun. So Manoj, are you game for this this little exercise?
Do I have a choice?
You do not.
So then
I am going to start the clock here in a second. So remember,
can I get a glass of bourbon?
You can get bourbon. I'm more than happy to get bourbon or glass. That's okay.
Oh man, you're driving the bus. I'm like, oh no.
So remember, you only have 3 minutes.
Okay.
To answer each question.
Okay.
So are you ready?
I guess I don't even know what the question is.
I know you don't. So I'm going to ask the question, then I'll start the thing. So let's start off with something easy.
Okay.
What's the one thing you wish you would have known when you began your career many, many years ago?
I wish I would have known that don't be afraid to speak out no matter who's in the room, and just remember that regardless of title, people are people, and you probably know more about them.
Excellent. Okay. So my second question is, it's kind of a follow-up to the first one. Who are the 3 people who have had the most influence or who have been most influential to you in your personal and your professional career?
Well, I'll tell you, my dad. I watched him build a medical practice from scratch. My uncle, who to this day runs an aerospace company. I always watch these folks have a great deal of self-confidence in themselves. And in spite of knowing what the odds are of commercial success when you venture off into their own, and they all had families and children, they still went ahead and did it. And my dad's youngest brother, who's also my uncle, he built a very successful refrigeration company. They were willing to take a chance on themselves, and that's a big lesson learned.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. So again, building upon the first 2 questions, what advice would you give someone wanting to pursue a career similar to yours?
Don't. Don't. So here's the great thing. Careers do not correlate. Careers in education and the pursuit of an education and the pursuit of corporate success have no correlation with happiness. If it's truly happiness that you are seeking and your passion lies in your career, then by all means do it. But if your passion lies elsewhere, that is outside of the traditional norms, when you're younger, you must take the chance before you become responsible for other lives around you.
That's good advice. So now when you look back after almost 30 years of building...
This is hard, by the way.
This
is serious.
Why? How about that? They actually prepared.
What the heck?
Yeah, and you didn't know about it.
This was supposed to be easy stuff, like what bourbon do you like, or something like that.
No. So almost 30 years you've been out of school, and so when you look back, what's your biggest failure, and what have you learned from that?
It's actually not academically related or even career-wise related. I would say not spending enough time at home.
Mm-hmm. When it was younger, when you were first starting your career?
I got married soon after, like 2 years after I started making a real living. And, I wouldn't call it a real living back then. Mm-hmm. Wages were pretty small, but,
I remember.
but let's put it this way. When I could afford to get my own place, a place that you would actually want to bring somebody back to. I don't think I spent enough time at home. I really I thought that career a good home, not a good house, but a good home was correlated with a fantastic financially successful career. And that was absolutely wrong.
I also have that experience.
Do you?
I do. So, but you're not interviewing me. I get to interview you. So,
but now you can't. You open the
no,
door,
no,
so
no,
I
no.
gotta ask the
Wait,
question.
no, not yet, not yet. So, what are the best resources that have helped you along the way?
Along the way for what?
Personal and professional development. Did you have a mentor in
Yeah,
school?
I've
did you have a great professor?
I had fantastic professors in college. Really good professors. And they were both academically and for professional development. They had great advice. One of them actually came over with Operation Paperclip.
So many of our listeners don't, because of their age, probably don't know what Operation Paperclip is. So why don't you explain to them?
It was the way German scientists became American scientists post World War II.
Yeah, it's easy.
That's how von Braun became the head of NASA.
Yeah.
But they've absolutely had from a professional, especially early on in my career when I was a practicing engineer, had a tremendous amount of guidance on certain things, and I didn't follow it, which I wish I would have done some of it, but that's okay. And then I think having great friends who also became great advisors over the year.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to mention you, but I don't because
you can't.
Me. Yeah, well, there's a lot to be said there, and I'll say it, Kevin. You've had a big influence, and we've known each other for a long time,
Wow.
and there's a lot that I learned. I've been very selfish in this relationship to a degree where I've probably gotten more than I've given.
Oh, shush.
So. Great friends like you, and I think the other thing that's been for me is having a positive, developing a positive outlook on humanity. I think has been a big influence on me, although it may not seem like so at times. I really am a pretty positive person, and I genuinely believe that fundamentally people are good, and if you take that approach from it's a different your thought processes change. You become a little bit more trusting, and unless you're trusting, it's hard to let go of things, and you may be wrong, but that's okay as well. Right? But if you don't trust and you become a control freak, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. And that's it's a really good segue into, given what's transpired in the last 24 to 48 hours, we really don't necessarily have to discuss that right now. I think it would take up much more time than we have. But my question that I wrote down for you is, what are your hopes for the future? And not only for yourself, but for your children.
Well, for myself, I think I am now I want to build things. And, right now we're involved with Dark Rhino and seeing this, essentially this child grow and develop from what was an idea on a napkin into a flourishing enterprise. It's not the monetary gain. It's actually being able to look back and say, you know what, we built something pretty darn cool. That's pretty cool. I think that would be a lot of satisfaction. And I think I would like my kids to grow up in a much less polarized world. And you mentioned the events of the last 48 hours. I think there has to be before things get better, they always have to get worse, right? And hopefully, what has taken place might lend itself to people seeing that there's more common ground than there is divide, and that they fundamentally believe in a nation that is for the people and of the people, right? Not just a government for the people and of the people, but the nation itself. And that might bring upon a world that is less polarized. And as a result, I hope my kids are more happy. That's the one thing I hope they pursue. I hope they pursue happiness.
So, one of the things that I've learned as an entrepreneur over the last 25 years, it's hard to imagine, is, I've been asked the question, do I have any regrets? And, again, for me, this podcast is way too short to be able to list all of my regrets. But I think it's an interesting question, so I pose it to you. Do you have one or two regrets in your life right now?
I don't know if to have a regret, I think you have to have a certain maturity level at the time in which you committed or did not commit an action to realize that it's a regret. Okay, so I don't know that I would characterize it as a regret, but heck, this audience will probably be pretty surprised to learn that my number one job was I would love to have flown F-15s. That's, if I could have done that gig, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
And nor I. I tried to get into the Naval Academy and they wouldn't take me.
Right.
So I'm a little bit older than you, so I was an F-14 Tomcat. I would have been Tom Cruise. I would have been me. They would have called me Maverick.
Well, that was just not in the cards, man.
Damn it. So when you look back, you're...
that's one...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And I was going to say the second thing is, I have a real passion for music.
Yeah.
And when, growing up in an Asian household, it's a very conservative environment, and the emphasis on education supersedes what are termed ancillary activities, as one would say. I wish I would have picked up the guitar when I was 10 years old or 7 years old, because I actually think I might have been able to do something with it.
Mm-hmm. Well,
now it's just all
fun
and
sing,
games.
But you
I can't sing. I can't sing.
But you can play.
And now these hands are getting too stiff to do a lot of things that a lot of artists are capable of doing. But yeah, I think I would have. I genuinely might have pursued something or given it a shot. I don't know what it would have done, but. Yeah. I might have ended up in the same place where we're at right now, but it would have at least been a different journey. And I could have said, you know what? I tried it. Wasn't cut out for it. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Move on.
So it's turning to a little bit more serious. It's unfortunate that you did not have your mother for as long as that I have had mine, and your mom's been gone for a while. If your mom was with you right now, what would you say to her?
I would say, I love you, and
cool.
Before you go, I need to spend a lot of time with you in the kitchen every minute. She was a fabulous cook. She was, and she, for her, cooking was a joy, and it was. Preparing a meal for everyone and and it wasn't just the family. I had friends over all the time for dinner. It was always a full house. Everybody was welcome, and she created through cooking a camaraderie and a very liveliness and and a happiness in everyone's life. And I miss that.
Yeah.
And I wish, I think I would like to experience that again.
That's wonderful. I was going to ask a follow-on question. Basically, is a funny story you could tell about your mom, but you started to around the kitchen, and maybe there is a funny story that you can recall that you could share with our audience.
A funny story about her. You got me into a little bit of a serious thing.
Yeah.
I gotta think of that. There's a lot of unexpected memories.
Yeah, it's a hard question, and we're, one of the questions that I've really pondered about asking because actually the next three questions are probably the most serious. And that is, if this were to be our very last conversation, is there anything you would want to say to me as your friend?
We did it right.
Yeah. So if...
we did it right. Love you and catch you on the other side.
That's right.
But,
whatever the other side is.
Yeah, I think... I think I've said this, Paul Coelho put it in his book, The Alchemist, the universe always conspires to help you.
Yeah.
And I believe this moment was inevitable. It is going to be, it was meant to be. And whatever happened, and you're very familiar with my background, and I believe we did it right. We did it the best that we knew how. And I don't have any more to be able to do than that.
So one day God will take all of us, or whatever you believe in.
Yeah.
If you were a witness at your own funeral, what would you want people to say about you?
I would want them to remember that I tried to be kind to everyone and never held a grudge against someone, and always tried to help people. I believe probably the biggest sin, depending on your belief, whatever you believe in, but is probably not helping someone when you have the ability to do so.
Mm-hmm.
To consciously look the other way.
It's hard.
It's hard.
Yeah.
If you can. I mean, there's a lot of things that you would love to help people with, but you have no ability, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But if you consciously turn away when you know you might be able to help someone, I think that's a serious decision.
Even if it means that help is not necessarily wanted or needed, or it goes unappreciated?
Well, if it could be given, Kevin, it should be given in a manner where the person receiving it doesn't even know. So that the possibility of that expectation arising in yourself doesn't exist. It's not always possible, because that's where all these things go off the rails. And I've been guilty of it when you help someone and you're doing it out of kindness, but subconsciously there's an expectation of a return. You are going to be disappointed in the future. Yeah. Without fail. It happens all the time. But if you help someone and they don't know you did it,
it's intrinsic.
It's intrinsic, yeah. At that point, there can be no such disappointment.
It's true. It's true. Well, Mr. Tandon, our time is almost up. We wanted to just to get to know our beloved leader of the Security Confidential podcast, and I hope that our audience finds this post-holiday podcast meaningful and insightful. And we look forward to getting back on track next week with a cybersecurity expert. and continuing every week with new and innovative and creative guests that will bring value to all of you. And we appreciate the time and consideration that you give us each and every week.